I know, oh, it's so cute. That's why when I asked you, how's your cat? I didn't know.
She's great. If we move this, we have several cats over here. Woody by far the. I got a pretty good Woody like 5 years. So we had a stream.
So what'd you think of the new California guy?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you
So we kind of decided what these areas, I think they're just kind of start slowing down, not being on as much.
I've got my opinion.
Huh?
I said I've got my opinion.
It's like, is this on my side? Some days, I just like have dogs in the street.
Yeah.
Couldn't find my.
You ready? Hold in order. Please rise. Let's salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Made it just in time.
Sorry, I got my iPad, I drew it home and grab it.
Okay, roll call.
Director Lmud.
Here.
Director Eckert.
Here.
Director Nagel.
Here.
Director Yergan-Boylan. Director Moore. Here. All present.
Invitation for public comment. All com-
Move to the agenda.
Oh. Approval of agenda.
I believe that there's no additions or deletions.
Move approved.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All in favor, and I will abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
For the agenda.
Pardon?
This is just the agenda.
Just for June, not the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're here all day.
The round buildings get you.
Okay, I approve.
Sorry, everybody else.
All right.
Aye.
Invitation for public comment. All comments are subject to the rules of public comment and requirements set forth below in the agenda. Anybody wish to speak?
Public comment,
Martin?
this would be regarding the substation. Should I wait until that time or present it now?
You can do it now since it's just a staff report later.
It's all the same?
Sure.
Okay. Sam Williams interviewed Nick Dominguez and posted the information on the 17th of this month on his website for lesson use. And I'm highlighting just a few things he said. I'm not going to read everything. And these are Nick's comments. The process they go through regarding Nevada Energy is a study on whether or not their system can take our load at that point. If they determine it's possible, they design the interconnection, and the interconnection is for the benefit of a sole customer, which is Lmud. A little further on, Lassen News asked Dominguez how much the Lmud taxpayers would have to pay for Nevada's Energy Schaefer substation. And the answer was about $24.5 million. And then further on comments, these costs will get trued up and billed to us over the next 20 years, plus their rate of return. So just looking at the cost as it increases we had on the skedaddle side, and knowing they're likely seeing some of these cost increases. Further down, the total cost of the project, about $80 million. It's a very expensive project, Nick Dominguez said. At the end of the day, reliability is what's most important to our customers. well, if you show me certain bills for Lmud, I might decide reliability might not be number one. And the other thing is, there's no assurance that Nevada Energy might go down sometime, or we might have someone in Lmud's workforce trip the wrong switch, or we might have a situation where Honey Lake Power can't come up, or other lightning hits, or cars hit or something. So we're not going to have a guarantee that there won't be any power outages. That has to be a given. It can't be any other way. And further on in the report, Dominguez said he will have these projections finalized to be presented at the board at the September 23rd meeting, which is today. And I wrote this down so I won't be taking a lot of time going off track here. Note that the board could not have known what they were signing on to, and if they had known, they would not have gotten involved. The cost may be more than estimated, and is entirely subject to what Nevada Energy decides to charge us. That's my understanding at this time. It looks like a cost-plus contract, and I would emphasize the plus is the unknown at present. Nevada Energy is now a Warren Buffett company, Berkshire Hathaway. They are in business to make money. In fact, Warren is known, and that company has been known, to give one of the best returns on stocks in the market. So they're not going to be giving anything away. This should not be a handshake deal. And according to what I read, we don't know what they're going to charge us. I hope I'm proved wrong on that. If we stay with this, there may never be light at the end of the tunnel financially for us, and debt service will never seem to end. Look at Susanville City and the Tuscarora gas line project. They're still working on debt service for that. And unknowns happen. And in this day and age, technology is moving so fast you don't know what you're going to have. By the time you finish a project, you find out that it's outdated. In fact, right now, it's cheaper to heat your house with electricity than with natural gas. That's technology changes. Besides that, you not only get to heat it, you can cool at the same time. There was a song, The Gambler, sung by Kenny Roberts. And I think it's fitting right now. The gambler's sitting at the table, and then the old gambler tells the younger ones, in essence, you have to know when to hold, when to fold, when to walk away, when to run away. Personally, I think we should walk or run away. I hope my mind has changed on that and I feel satisfied otherwise. But right now, my feeling is it's time to walk away. Yes, we have to lick our wounds, but we would not be indentured to Nevada Energy for the rest of our lives. There's an alternative to look at. In fact, there are many alternatives, and I know you've looked at some of them, but one that I haven't heard about, I have discussed, not with others, the possibility of a natural gas turbine to generate electricity when we need it. And always thinking in the past, thinking in terms of enough to supply all the energy we need. We do need enough power to put Honey Lake online. They can't go online when they're independent. When we're shut down because we can't get electricity from outside, Honey Lake Power, if they go down, they can't start up. I don't know how many kilowatts it takes. But if we had something in the order of 5 to 8 megawatts of gas turbine power run by the Tuscarora gas line, we could at least rotate around the community and give a few hours of power to different areas in the community. There are small power companies that operate continuously that way. We could do it in emergencies, I believe. And with that going on, the last thing is that even a 2 kilowatt generator at a house will take care of the refrigerator, maybe the computer, the lights, and a few things like that. So a person interested in not really, a little bit worried about power outages could take care of it on their own. And $80 million divided by 10,000 meters, by the way, comes out to about $8,000 per person. So if everyone with a meter could divvy up $8,000 right now, we wouldn't be paying interest and extending this over the 20 years that Nevada Energy gives us to pay up on it. And I want to thank the board for listening. I really appreciate you guys making decisions. And I know it gets challenging at times. I've never had a problem walking in and talking to Nick or the general manager or one of the board members or anyone else. And Lmud has helped a lot with Susanville Supermarket, where he's still doing a little work there. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
I didn't give my name. It's Martin Baldwin. I'll have a name tag on.
My name is Mike Kelly. I've been here for a few, I've been pretty busy. But back in May, I was under the impression that when decisions are made about upping the rate per kilowatt, lowering the rate per kilowatt, whatever. So I come to the meeting, I listen, I must have fallen asleep, wasn't paying attention. But I get a phone call about June 11th. My bill's messed up again. The company that does all this had the wrong numbers because I generate power. And I saw back down line. So I get a new bill. I said, well, how much? Well, we're paying you 6 cents a kilowatt. I said, when did that happen? I don't remember nothing about May. I remember in May, we're good, we're not changing anything. June 11th, I went down from 8 cents to 6 cents a kilowatt. So this is my bill that I just got, and I consumed 1,034 kilowatts. I exported 1,973 kilowatts. So about 930 kilowatts, you sold back to all the people in Lmud at 19 cents a kilowatt. So for this pay period, with my bill that I owe $181, and what I figure, I could be wrong, it's a long time since I've been in now, this month, y'all made $365 off of me with my paying you and my export. And I saw on the last news on the internet thing, you all looking at $20 more per month. Now, how much does that come to a kilowatt? 20, 21, 22 cents? Or did I misread that? Did I misread that? No, I didn't, so that's that?
So this is public comment, it's not
Yeah.
exchange.
It's on last news, that's where I saw what you made the comment, what the gentleman just said, I saw all that. Right now, we're looking at $20 more a month that we're paying. That's what the article said. So how much is that coming to a kilowatt? So now does what I make, do I get more money on my end? If that's the road we're going? Because right now, I'm paying 19.5 and y'all paying me 0.06. That's 13 cents difference. You're making, and I'm okay with it. I don't mind helping the community, I don't mind helping Lmud. I'm cool with all that. But you know, your expenses are going up. I'm retired. I can't go out and work overtime for stuff. I'm sitting on fixed income. So about $20 a month won't break me. But Nevada Energy, for 8 years, they've been overpricing their customers on some homes. $45 million they have to pay back now. That's in the news, it's nothing secret. So now I'm starting to wonder, if they're overcharging their customers, what would they do to us? I'm just being real. Everything's the bottom line. Am I wrong or am I right, gentlemen, ladies? Everything is the bottom line. We can argue all day, but we can come right back to that bottom line. Am I wrong or am I right? Because we're talking $80 million now for 20 years. Somebody has to pay it. True? Somebody does. There's no control of what costs are. Silver today costs $1, tomorrow may cost $3 an ounce. Steel, copper, whatever. Concrete, transportation, tariffs. You know, I know what the timing is right now with all your tariff stuff, but the Supreme Court found it was illegal. I'm not getting into politics, but I do follow kind of what's going on now, because it affects me, my bottom line. All I'm asking is, if I miss something, because I even made a comment in May about when Honey Lakes generates power and I'm generating power, do y'all make money off of me? Yes, you do. Elmud makes money off of me, and I'm okay with that. That's why I did all this, to help out. Instead of complaining all the time, I decided to do this. And I'm part of the community. Okay? But it's like every time I take a step forward, I'm getting slapped. I'm going 2 steps backwards. I'm trying to get that 1 step back right now. So if we're going more money, is the home generators that produce, is our stuff gonna go up or stay the same? That's all I'm asking. I can't control the $20. I can't control what you charge me. I'm just asking. You know what I mean? Y'all are, just be careful about energy. Everything I see on the news, I understand it's the news and I understand, but I also get other ways of finding my information. I don't know. Nevada Energy, they turn their stuff off on windy days too. So I don't know if that affects us or not. I asked that question once before. I don't remember what the answer was. But they shut power down too on windy days. Cold Springs. I'm a VA driver. I drive on Tuesdays. I go to Cold Springs. They're out of power more than they're on power in Cold Springs. I hear it all the time from the vet I pick up every Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm out powered again. I'm just saying, just be a little bit more transparent. I haven't been for a few weeks. I've been kind of busy. I'm retired. I don't have time. But all I'm asking is, if the bill's going up that we have to pay, does the bill come up and what do you pay me or people like me that generate power? I don't know how many there are. I'm only speaking about myself. Now, nobody else has hired me. Nobody else is pointing me this way. I'm talking about me. Okay? Y'all make some money off of me. You know, wintertime's a little bit different because the sun's going down. It's not out as much. But in spring and summer, y'all making money off of me. And I'm okay. Again, I'm okay with that. All I'm asking is be fair.
Thanks, Mike.
Can I move the podium back? So I can see it.
Go ahead and move it right around to the
No, can you scoot it back a tiny bit, the podium, please?
Jim Chapman, Susanville, and I'm gonna take a little bit different tack. I wanted to start off by saying I want to thank you guys and now the lady, and the staff and so forth for making sure that I was a liar. And I appreciate that. You know, I think when it comes to making commitments to the community, it's important that we represent what the facts really are. And I think the changes of administration we've seen over the last 5, 6, maybe even 10 years with the district, each team that comes in and provides leadership, not so much the staff, but at the level, you know, they have their ideas, they make their representations based on what the facts and what they think the reality is. I only started coming and attending these meetings after the big fair blackout crisis that we had. We were out of power for about a week there, and Court and his guys did a phenomenal job finally getting us back online. I remember this room was full of people, and you know, everybody was a little bit upset about what was going on at that time. And Dave, you know, said, well, you know, nobody ever comes and like is here at our meetings when it only comes when there's a problem, you know. And so I volunteered at that time. I'm here to support you, Dave.
Thank you.
And I won't forget you. I'm going to make sure that we stay focused on tech. You know, Lmud was founded 40 years ago. I was involved with the citizens group that actually organized and got us up and running as an independent district. And we were designed to get away from, you know, the PG&E and how we've been manhandled by them. Now I'm starting to hear we're probably going to have a similar kind of manhandling with MV Energy. But, you know, we need to be focused on what we do, not what everybody else is doing, but focus on what's best for us. And so anyway, when I saw the press releases and I'm interested, I did have lunch with Nick the other day, and he kind of made his case, and I'm intrigued by his proposal. I'm not sure if I'm ready to sign off and support it, you know, when the hydroelectric crisis hit and caused you guys to start having bills that instead of being $700,000 to $900,000 a month in terms of purchasing power, you were faced with bills that were coming in for like 1.9, 2.1, $2.3 million. I mean, it was huge. And the revenue and our rates did not support that kind of a hit. And it was just the nature being what it is. And it was at that time, our rates were 13.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and over the next, not quite a year, it escalated up, and that's how we got up to the 19.5 cent rate. And at the time, you know, I said, well, maybe we should put it on as a surcharge, but you know, everybody was adamant, we're gonna roll it into the rates. But I said, you know, when the hydro crisis ends and the rates that those purchase power bills come down, you know, we need to dial back the kilowatt rate. And I was assured, and that's where I proved to be kind of a liar, that when that time came, that's what we would be doing. And I went out and I took some hits from the few friends I have left. I don't have many more, but the few friends I had left. And I said, and they were, you know, thanks to Sam, he put out there, Chapman was at the podium and supported the board and the district to raise the rates. And I took some hits for it. I said, but you know, that's how you have to operate business. But I have to tell you, now we have a new leadership team. We're learning that all the representations that have been made in the recent past as to, you know, reliability and having rates, you know, coming back down. You know, we're talking about a potential rate increase. That's what you're going to consider at your hearing in October. I just want to impress upon you that, yeah, reliability is important, but affordability of the electricity is just as important. I'm sure that 98% of the people out there on the street don't see the facts that Nick sees. He wrote an excellent piece in the Rural Life. I told him who wrote it for him, and I thought one of the staff did, but he had to claim ownership of it. But I just want to say that I think it's important that you look at how we can dial some of the rates back. You collected an extra 6 cents. 1 cent is roughly $1.2 million. So that's roughly about $7 million a year that we've been accumulating over the last 2 to 3 years to pay for those excess costs. So you have a lot of money, in my opinion, in your system. So when you start talking about adding to that, okay, we're going to be having Skedaddle hopefully up and running before the end of next year, so that cent was put on to support that. So over the last 10 years, the ratepayers have invested in excess of $12 million towards that Skedaddle project. That penny theoretically would go away. But the point I want to make is that we need to have you demonstrate. If you're going to keep the rates where they're at, you need to define what it is that we're going to get for that extra $7 million. And I have not seen that forthcoming. Nick has alluded to some things. We talked about a substation at Chestnut. You know, that's $250,000, $350,000, let's say even $500,000. Well, for $7 million, you could build, you know, 15 Chestnut substations. So I think how that money is going to be used needs to be quantified before you start talking about adding under this proposal that's being introduced tonight, and the hearing will be. And I'm just saying that tonight so that you'll be thinking about it. I'll be back in October and hopefully have some more critical thoughts. And I do appreciate the effort and interest that Nick has had made and the rest of the staff in terms of enlightening me. But I think there's more to it. But keep in mind your number one obligation. The people on the street want to see the power rates cut. It's just costing too much to live in America anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I guess you've heard enough. I move. Should we go on? Should staff members reports.
Yes, Teresa wants to follow that up with some good news.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to give you a quick update on our customer appreciation celebration. We had a great turnout. Nick doesn't like it when I say this, 120 pounds of hot dogs. We had a really great response from the community, and it was a great turnout. And thank you to everybody who came and shared that day with us. Just on the heels of that, we're coming up in October. We'll be doing our community outreach for Winter Energy Assistant Rate program called It's Where. We will be be going to Escaton, Lassen Manor, and Susan River Apartments, having lunch with the residents there, making sure that they're all signed up. They're all electric housing there. So we make sure that everybody that qualifies for the program is on the program. It will be out on the public, on our website, October 1st. We'll be taking applications. So rate assistance goes from November's usage to April. Is that right, Christina?
It depends on cycle, but it's November through May.
November through May.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a 50% discount on the first 1,500 kilowatt hours.
It's
So we,
142.50.
you guys normally get about, what, 700 people on that?
I think last year we had about 620,
Yeah.
so that's like a double from the previous years.
Yeah, and we've really gone out and made sure that everybody that's qualified for that program knows about it and has the opportunity to apply. It'll be in Rural Light, we'll have it on Facebook, and like I said, the application with the guidelines will be published on October 1st on our website. So, if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any more to say?
That's it.
Board members report, any board member have anything to report? We'll go on to the minutes finally. Minutes of August 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 26th.
Moved and seconded, as I started to get earlier, I abstained from this because I wasn't there. All in favor?
Aye.
Go on to financial report.
I will be presenting tonight. This will actually be my last time presenting the financial reports, as Heather was promoted to accounting and finance manager. So unless by special appearance, she'll be presenting from here on out. And I just want to thank you guys for your feedback and your support in the last year plus. So tonight, the income statement, we're going to report on the first month of fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, which is July. Looking at our annual budget, July represents 8.9% of the fiscal year. Happy to report that we have met or have come under all of our budget goals as far as that is concerned, depending on the metric. Operating revenue in July was $2,820,130. Our purchase power was $1,287,538, also 8% of the annual budget. Total O&M expenses, $2,053,185, also coming in at 8% budget. So these are great numbers. Our total operating expenses all in was $2,289,477, with a total income from operations of $530,643. Our non-operating revenues coming in at 9% at $181,578 for a total net change in position since June 30th of $712,230. Any questions there? So we have our operating margin, which is our sales versus operating expenses there. You can continue to see that we are on a positive trajectory here as we jump into the new year. So happy to see that we continue to trend positive. Really, this is a new slide for us, guys. As you know, in the formulation of the current fiscal year budget, the staff here did a lot of work to really break this down, understand what the drivers of our purchase power expenses are, as it is the most, it's the largest and most volatile expense that we have. I'd like to present to you here on the left side here. This was our July forecast. Just an update. So down here, HL Solar and Base Resource look very similar. I will say that. So up here is the July forecast. It's about $1.4 million. How we came in July is in the middle, which is great. A little under $1 million, we'd like to see that. And then to demonstrate to you on the right here, these slotted lines represent the budget that was not consumed in July. This large one here represents our budget for HLP islanding. We had no islanding in July. So while we have this cost savings in July, we're actually gonna hold this budget for the next time that we island. As we know, sometimes those can be lengthy and they can be quite expensive compared to our other purchase power costs. This other light one here, I wanna demonstrate to you guys, this was a surprise to us. In the current fiscal year, WAPA, for some of the power we received from them, is using their own transmission lines. And so, in their rebill, they determined that we got a credit for 150K. This was something we could not project, nor is it dependable. So this is kind of a sweetener on our purchase power savings for July. And we will continue to monitor and manage and as we go. Just to show you here too, this legend, I know it's very small, so please look at your iPads. You can see each one of these represents one of our sources of purchase power. I'd also like to just point out that in our projection here, if you look at this, at 1.4 million compared to this, we came within 4%. Our kilowatts consumption within 4% of what we projected. So that is very precise. I'm very proud of that work that Nick spearheaded and led, and the rest of us.
Kelly, before you move on, I just want to underscore the importance of this, because this is a fundamental change on how we've looked at purchase power before. So with this year's budget, like Kelly said, we started an effort to try and forecast our monthly purchase power costs for the next 12 months. And then this is our first look at how our new forecasting model has done. And, netting out the islanding, which we know, it is, we're just trying to put a placeholder in there to ensure that when it does happen, we have the money. And then the unknown with the transmission savings, the fact that we were within 4% of what we projected back in March or April, I think is when we started preparing this. That's pretty good. So if this tool continues to prove itself out like this gives us great visibility into what our future costs will be, which helps for our future forward planning. So this is good stuff. That's good.
Any questions?
Yeah, the blue and white grid is down here under PACIDLAP, and I went and looked, that's not in our acronyms.
Yeah, so that is the WAPA, they call it the PACI-DLAP, which is the Pacificor something like, distributed aggregated price, something like that. But what it really is WAPA was able to get approval to utilize some of their own transmission to credit back the full load service customers the revenue off of that transmission. However, as a base resource customer, we are under the first preference customer, so we're sort of bottom of the barrel. If there's any transmission left over, then we get a little bit of savings. But for this month, we were able to use a significant amount of their transmission for something like 2,400 megawatt hours, and their transmission was $1.29, I think, versus the PG&E's wheeling access charge, which is a little over $33 a megawatt hour. So significant savings. It's just not reliable because we don't know when they're going to have transmission available, and like I said, we're bottom of the barrel, so whatever's left over we get. But what we get, and that's great.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So this is a new slide too. This represents the full 12 months, 11 months ahead of us, and then over here to the left is July. In order to monitor and measure the fiscal health of the district, we're wanting to demonstrate to you our net income, which is this light green that shows up in July, but also the subsequent months. Those are our budgeted lines, the light for net income. The light blue is our budgeted net position, which is net after everything, including other income and expenses. So this is the year in front of us. If we look at July, I want to show you that we did do better than our projected net income. That is contributed to the WAPA credit of 150K plus controlled expenses in alignment with our strategic plan. Sorry, Heather, I didn't mean to get you there. Don't want to take you out. And then you can see the same effect here on the actual net. It's much smaller because there are other income and expenses at the bottom, but we are still beating or exceeding these two really important metrics. We will continue to build this out and continue to discuss the drivers. and thought this was important for you guys too, because you can see kind of what we have ahead of us. So, you know, as far as your consideration of plans, things that are brought before you, not just to show you what we've done, but also what we've done in reference to what we also expect to do. So, we'd love, you know, either to Nick directly, any feedback here that we can continue to provide you guys additional information that's transparent as to how we are performing. Any questions on the new slide? Thank you. This is the check register for the month of August 2025. I'd like to just point out that this was a pretty large month of cash outlays. Specifically, you can see here that WAPA bill crept up back close to $1 million, which is not necessarily, you know, a favorable position. However, we also had 3 payrolls in August. Sometimes there's 3 Fridays, every other Friday, or excuse me, 5 Fridays, and 3 of them are payrolls. So as we go through the check register, everything else looks pretty normative and customary, but we did outlay, if you get to the last page, a little over $2.8 million in August. I'll take a moment to scroll. Please let me know if you'd like to discuss or have any questions about the items.
Kelly, I just want to highlight the second one on there, which is payment to Summit Line Construction for skedaddles. That's progress billing number 1.
Yeah, it's a long one. Any questions about any of the outlines, guys? I'm sorry, 2.18, I misspoke. Are we good to go? Cheers. Okay, here's our cash position report as of 8/31. This represents 2 months of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Our restricted funds as of 8/31 are $836,825. A little creep up from the beginning of the year, 7/1, but fairly flat as it stands. Our designated funds at 8/31 are $17,306,215. This is up from the beginning of the year, which was $15.8 million. We did, based on the purchase power under budget savings of the previous fiscal, we did transfer some unrestricted funds into the power market volatility account as well as the capital special projects. So the difference between unrestricted funds down here and designated funds is the inverse in moving those cash to the designated funds that were approved by the board. All in total cash investments, we have $33,805. That's just a small increase of $811,632 since June 30th. At the end of August, we had $8,335,992 left in the Bank of New York bond, which is for the exclusive use of the skedaddle substation. And then our OPEB Medical Trust, currently the unfunded actuarial liability this is custom and normative at $1,052,847. Any questions on the cash report with 8/31? And then here's just a simple representation of how the cash has performed since 7/1. You can see we had a pretty good lift here in July, and then we ate a little bit at the total cash as we came into August, but that was expected as we had those 3 payrolls. So that is pretty cash intensive. Any questions? Excellent. This graph we've seen before represents the cash by category change and for the last two years or 24-month period. You can see here again, this is when we cleaned up the categorization between designated and restricted. And really there hasn't been too much movement outside of the funding of the designated account, special capital projects, and market volatility. So while we continue to trend very slightly upwards, there hasn't been a lot of movement outside of our internal transfers. Any questions on the cash by category graph? Excellent. year-to-date skedaddle costs, so we're gonna look at skedaddle costs through 8/31. This year-to-date, in the first 2 months, from our Lake Skedaddle Fund, we have spent $1,061,491 on skedaddle, and have transferred in, bond funds of $358,422. Excuse me. Total life of the project, we spent $83,514, excuse me. The funds added to Lake Skedaddle, the penny from rates, for the current fiscal year, we've contributed $233,888. Current balance, as previously discussed in the BNY Mellon Bond Fund, is about $8.3 million. And this is the updated list through 8/31. I know we've had some significant activity in the current month of September, not represented here, but all in committed, we have $13,059,754 still left on the table to finish construction. Any questions? Thank you kindly. Key financial metrics. The cash on hand metrics through the end of August, we are still exceeding all of these goals of 90, 180, and 180 days, with cash on hand unrestricted reserves at 195 days, unrestricted and designated at 422, unrestricted, designated, and restricted all in at 433. As the financials that we have reviewed today have demonstrated, we are at the peak and the kind of cusp of the last bit of that big skedaddle money. All of the bond money as well as the reserves, both in length. And those dollars we know are going to be spent within the next fiscal year. And so it's important for us to pull those back and really show you what our true cash on hand is when we take out the skedaddle funds, which are committed to the specific project. When we do that, the cash on hand, days on hand scenario, changes quite a bit. 216 is our unrestricted and designated cash on hand days when our goal is 180. That is quite different from 422. And our all in unrestricted, designated, and restricted is 226 days when the goal is 180. So we are in a good position just to show that the current methodology at top kind of overinflates our financial position as it relates to cash on hand. The debt ratio, the debt service ratio, currently is at 27%, which meet or exceeds the requirement. I do want to point out though that the debt service coverage ratio, which this metric, as designated by S&P, who rates the public utility as a financial entity, they require us to be at 1.25 for this ratio. That covers the entire year's debt service. So the numbers that are used are only through July, and so we're only at 0.79. So while we're underneath it, as we go through the fiscal year, this will increase. We will continue to monitor and manage. It's really hard to meet or beat that within the first 3 months of the year. So overall, we're in a stable position, even though we're pressing into the cash spend with skedaddle. Any questions on our key financial metrics? Thank you, kindly. And just to reiterate our financial summary for the board here. I think I know how to use my phone. Our cash on hand for the district in August fell slightly since July, with 3 payrolls in August contributing to the reduction. You can see that in August we ended at 33 million flat, and in July we had 33.1 million. So ever so slight, but this is when we start to measure and really track any of these changes as we spend skedaddle money. Our revenue in July 25 increased slightly since June 25, really contributed to an increase in agricultural kilowatt hour consumption. But in my analysis, I did notice that our July kilowatt hour consumption fell short of the previous year. So while month over month, our kilowatt consumption increased 6% since June, year over year, July, we actually consumed 12% less kilowatt hours this year in July compared to the previous. Purchase power, we discussed that the purchase power or projections came within 4% of the budget and what we were thinking we were going to land. With the budgeted expense for HL power being accrued or saved for future months when islanding will be necessary. With no islanding, slight underperformance of kilowatt hour sales, and a WAPA issued transmission credit of $150,000, the net July purchase power came 17% under budget. So our budget was 1.5 million and we came in at 1.28. Our net margin, net operating margin, aligning with that WAPA transmission credit of 150K and executing on our July 2025 budgeted expenses to be realized in subsequent months. The net operating margin came above the budget at $530,653. Exceeded the expected net operating margin of 293.16. Again, it's our first month of the fiscal year, so we'll take that gain in advance of future months to come. And again, on budget for the first month of fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, we're performing right on time as far as 1/12 of the year is concerned. 8% of the year, and our revenue was at 9% of the annual budget. Our purchase power was at 8%, O&M expense of 8%, and non-operating revenue at 9%. So I'm happy to report that July is stable, and while some things continue to move, we have a lot of good tools and processes in place to measure and manage, and we'll report on anything, of course, through Nick as we see fit. Any questions about our July?
Good job.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Reports from general manager.
You're doing your job too, right?
I need it.
Okay, so last meeting I failed to provide a staffing update for you on a new hire, so I wanted to do that today. We recently onboarded Michaela Pollard as our new accounting technician. So if any of you have been in the office, I don't know if you've seen her walking down the hall. Michaela's previous work experience includes 4 years with the Lassen County Office of Education, where she did accounts payable, payroll, and some other accounting-related functions. And prior to that, she has a few years of experience in banking. So if you see Michaela, or if you'd like me to introduce you to her when you're here in the office, just let me know. Okay. I wanted to provide the board a legislative update, since it is the end of the state legislative session, and there were some bills that we had interest in, either in favor or not in favor in some cases. But as Mr. Chapman has mentioned, affordability continues to be a concern, not only in the state legislature, but federally as well. But California specifically passed some affordability related bills, a couple of which we were in support of. You may recall, or you probably recall, the Pathways legislation, which is the legislation that enables the CAISO to have an independent governance structure, which supports the expansion of the extended day-ahead energy market, which is projected to have significant cost savings for customers. But I wanted to mention this one specifically, not only because we were in support of it, but the original introduction of the bill included some language that was detrimental to us specifically. There was some language in there about the boundaries for CAISO. One of the concerns that other states have is that they don't want the CAISO to expand or contract its balancing authority because they're afraid that it will allow them to impose their will on the other states. And so some language was in there that prohibited CAISO from changing their boundaries from which they existed in December of 2024, which for us is problematic because our intention with the completion of the Skedowel project is to move to the Enry Energy's balancing authority. So working with the California Municipal Utility Association, we were successful in getting that portion of the bill amended. So the legislation that passed, that's AB 825, does not include that language that was problematic for us. So I want to point that out. That's important because in reality, we are the only ones that language affected. Nobody else really intends to leave the CAISO's balancing authority. So without our participation, in collaboration with CMUA, we could have ended up in a situation that caused us some trouble down the road. So that's a great win for us. We don't often get wins in Sacramento. The other one is the extension of the cap and trade legislation. The cap and trade legislation includes in it some allotments for public utilities for emissions credits. So we are required, anytime we utilize energy that is carbon emitting, we are required to retire these emission credits to the state. And through the cap and trade legislation, we actually get those emission credits allocated to us, and then we are able to auction any leftover credits, and then use those revenues to put towards the purchase of clean energy, like some of our long-term PPAs. So the extension of that cap and trade legislation was beneficial for us because it allows us to keep our allocations, and we'll continue to utilize those funds to reduce our purchase power costs. So a couple wins for us in Sacramento. Moving on to, well, actually, is there any questions on the legislative updates?
Can't believe 2 wins without a caveat.
I'm just not going to mention any of the others. But any wins for us is great, right? Okay, so no other questions. Moving on to meetings attended. I virtually attended the UAMPS Project Management Committee meeting to get some updates on some of the projects that we were members of. I'll provide you updates on those projects in just a little bit. NRECA, with the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, was on site last month to do a part of their organizational assessment, and they're going to be returning at the end of this month and beginning of October for their final visit before they provide our report. Later this week, I'll be attending the NCPA annual meeting, and then I've also been asked to speak at the Susanville Morning and Noon Rotary Clubs. Those are scheduled for October. And then later in October, before the next board meeting, I'll be attending the UAMPS Board of Directors meeting, as well as the NWPP Board of Trustees meeting. Moving on to major ongoing projects, I'm going to leave the construction update for Skedaddle to court, but I'll give you a couple other updates related to Skedaddle. Number one is that the phase shifting transformer arrived in Texas, was offloaded from the vessel and loaded onto a rail car. We continue to stay engaged with Congressman LaMalfa's office and staffers to try and see if we can secure an exemption to the Brazil tariffs. They continue to report to us that they're not getting any responses from the White House, but they continue to reach out. We also looped in some of our partner organizations like the American Public Power Association and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, who suggested that we reach out to the Department of Energy as they may have an avenue to get an exemption. So we're pursuing that as well, hoping that we can net something there. And then also PG&E is working with NV Energy on our response to the significant operational change notice. So if you recall, we have an interconnection agreement with PG&E. The change to that interconnection agreement for the Skedaddle substation and NV Energy interconnection requires a significant operational change study. So they're continuing to move forward with that, and they're awaiting some study results from NV Energy on whether or not they need to do any additional work on that. Any questions on Skedaddle?
Maybe this isn't the time and place, Gene can tell me, but Jim, you've got some bad numbers. You're missing quite a lot. That lay fund actually garnered closer to $1.2 million a year, nowhere near 7. If it had been 7, there'd be over $80 million in it. If there's a $20 a month fee coming somewhere, we haven't talked about it yet. Maybe we're talking about rolling out the public benefits.
We can talk about that on the 14401.
And then you also mentioned that we used to pay around $1 million. When this stuff started, we paid closer to $500,000 for wholesale power. And now, last month was over $1 million between Honey Lake Power and, so your numbers are skewed.
I'm not gonna respond to him at this time, but you'll get a response.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm just using your numbers, so if they're wrong, it's because you haven't put out good numbers.
They're right here. Well, let's table that until we get to the 14
Yeah.
procedure. Procedurally, that's the proper time to speak about it.
So, if there are no other questions about skedaddle, I'll move on to an update on new resource options. So there's a few new resource options that UAMPS is developing on behalf of their members, and including Lmud as we're part of the projects. One of them is the Power County Combined Cycle Natural Gas Project that is up in Idaho. So they're moving forward on that project. They have submitted a large generator interconnection study with PacifiCorp for their interconnection. So that study has to be completed to determine whether or not they have any cost, or we have any cost responsibility for transmission upgrades for that interconnection. They're also working on permitting with the local Power County Planning Commission and potential zoning for the siting of that facility. And they're working on some preliminary engineering for the site as well. So that project is moving forward. Millard County is another project with UAMPS that is for what they call a peaker, natural gas peaker plant, a reciprocating engine. That one is also moving forward. They're still in the preliminary engineering and transmission studies to determine whether or not the siting that they selected will work out, figure out the transmission path, the proposed path for any natural gas pipelines to feed the facility. But both of these facilities are scheduled to come online sometime in 2030 or 2031. These are long development cycles, both for the development of the project itself, but the lead time on the equipment, like we know transformers are multi-years out. The combined cycle natural gas generators are many years out and starting to become difficult to come by. So these projects, it's great that we can be members of them through UAMPS because that means that they're able to pool resources of all of the UAMPS members, so that's good. Moving on, an update from Fish Lake Geothermal. So Fish Lake Geothermal is one of the geothermal facilities that we have a purchase power agreement with that is to be interconnected with NV Energy to provide some power to us once we're interconnected. They're still awaiting permit from the BLM. They've identified that there may be some environmental mitigation measures that need to be done for the Tui Chub that is in a lake that's nearby to their site. So they're determining what impact that's going to have on the project. We were originally expecting that they were going to have BLM approval by Q3 of this year, and that they were going to start turning dirt Q4. Now they're saying that's been pushed out another quarter, so they're expecting to have the permit completion by the end of this year and to turn dirt Q1 of 2026 with an expectation to come online early 2027. So again, these projects are long lead time. They're all encountering some of the same challenges that we're encountering with Skedaddle and the NV Energy is encountering with Schaefer. It seems to be industry-wide. And then lastly, we are members of what we're calling UAMPS West, which is a group of UAMPS members that receive power from NV Energy with the goal of finding projects that are closer to us to save us on future transmission costs. So that group gets together periodically to investigate any new opportunities for power. They are currently investigating a solar and battery project that could be sited somewhere on our system, which could be beneficial for us in terms of transmission. But UAMPS is currently soliciting the members to see who has interest for how much power, and they're going to try and nail down some pricing on a term sheet so that they can determine whether or not it's going to be palatable for us. And that's my report. Any questions? Yeah, or as part of your.
Skedaddle construction report. So there is quite a bit. Thomas, I don't know if you can roll those pictures again. There is quite a bit to report on because there's quite a bit happening. Hopefully Thomas will get some pictures up that were shown earlier of the construction site. The control house for the site was delivered September 10th. It came in 2 halves, similar to like a modular, and they put it together. It's 25 by 40. I'm hoping those pictures come up because they'll show, give you a pretty good idea of what it looks like and what it took to unload it. They used a 90-ton crane to unload the 2 halves. Here we go with the pictures. So there is half of it right there under the crane. Also, to the right, you can see the transformer pads being built. And there's one more that you'll actually be able to see in the inside. As you can see inside the control, that all the controls are ready. It's it was prefab that way, with everything comes as built. So that is now in place. As you can see, the transformer pads right there, the concrete, both of those transformer pads will be completely poured by this Friday. All of the concrete breaks, we talked about this before, but there's going to end up being 700 cubic yards of concrete on this site, and all of the concrete was sourced from a local vendor. And the NST tests the concrete to make sure of its integrity, and it has to meet a minimum of 4,500 PSI, and all of the concrete breaks are coming back well above the minimum threshold. The contractor and our engineers are very happy with the concrete. Some of the 3-day breaks are coming back over 4,500 PSI. Some of the 28-day breaks are coming back close to 56. So concrete is really good. There's about 65% of the ground grid is complete. As Nick mentioned earlier, the phase shifting transformer was unloaded off of a boat in Houston, Texas a few days ago. It is on a rail car right now. It is waiting inspection, and then it is going to hit the rails, I guess, and it is going to travel by rail bed to Sparks, Nevada. In Sparks, Nevada, it will be put on a truck and trailer, and it will be loaded to the site. And its expected delivery date is October 23rd. That's the day we expect to have the phase shifting transformer. All of the concrete pads will be completed and certified before that. Transformer 1 and Transformer 2, which as we know are in Laredo, Texas, those were expected to be here in October. Siemens apparently scheduled the wrong type of rail car for them. I don't work on a train, but they scheduled the wrong type of rail car, so they had a delay. The first transformer will be here the week of November 3rd, and the second transformer will be here the week of November 10th. I believe they spaced those out on purpose. All of the transformers are coming from Siemens. They did not want 3 transformers getting here at the same day because they're big and it takes a little bit to unload them. So right now it's October 23rd, November 3rd, and November 10th for the 3 transformer delivery. Summit, our contractor, is in discussions with not only Siemens and our engineers, but the third-party transport company that will unload the transformers. They will not use a crane. The transformers, to give you an idea, the transformers in Laredo, Texas, when they get here, this is not final weight, but they're going to be about 220,000 pounds each. After they put the oil and the bushings in, they'll be over 400,000. But 220,000 pounds each as is. They won't use a crane for these. They use a technique called, they call it jack and slide. They jack it up, crib it, and slide it onto the pad. I've seen it done with much smaller units. I'm very interested to see this one. I think it's going to be interesting. But again, this company, that's what they do. That's all they do. They specialize in unloading 100,000 pounds equipment. But the reason that that's important is, as you can see in these pictures, there are other things around those concrete pads. So our contractor is making sure that for the jack and slide operation, that we are not putting anything in the way so the truck, when it brings the transformer in, can get exactly where it needs to get and not have some little concrete pier in its way. If you look at that picture right there, you see the gate. At the end, this substation was designed purposely so that trucks could come in one end, drive around the perimeter, unload their load like that control house, and then leave through the gate, which you can't see, but it's on the bottom left-hand corner of that picture. So that was, there was thought process from the engineering team. There's the other gate, to make sure that all of these huge deliveries would be able to ingress and egress properly. Most of the smaller equipment is already showing up. We have a lot of it at our Chestnut Street yard. Some of the switches, the VTs, the SSVTs, the arresters, just a lot of the ancillary equipment that's going to go in the sub is already here. And some of the switches have already been delivered to the site. And the last thing I will say on the skedaddle construction is Summit Line Construction, who was awarded the bid to construct this. I believe we had 8 or 10 bids, and they were the lowest, and they're a very reputable firm. They also were awarded the Schaefer substation contract for NV Energy. So it's kind of good to have some continuity with the same contracting outfit that's building ours, that's gonna build the one next door to us.
The transformers are all on the skedaddle side. What kind of equipment's gonna go in on those?
So
They won't have any monster.
no, so their side is, we call it a substation. Technically, the NV Energy side is what you call a switching station. There will be no transformers, the substation transforms voltage. They are going to have a lot of equipment for switching, and they already actually have their control house there. They built their concrete foundation. NV Energy did that in-house a couple months ago, and they had their control house. It's already delivered on the site, but that's the only thing on their site right now. Yeah, they're looking at completion by, again, we talked about it earlier, by the end of 2026. And part of the reason their Gantt chart schedule got delayed was because of that 345 line, which I don't believe has ever had an outage in its existence that I'm aware of, and NV Energy, I believe, has told me that. They can only take outages on it through certain times a year, and in order to build the switches coming in their sub, they have to do that during their required outage period, which is, I believe, in October of 26. That's why they pushed it back. And then as far as future outages, we're digressing a little bit, but it's good for the public. That NV Energy line will have a north and a south switch. So if there is a problem with the NV Energy line to the north, we have been informed that our substation would still receive power from the south. And if there was a catastrophic event on that line to the south, then we would still be able to receive power from the north. It's gonna have 2 switches coming in. So the only way that's logical that we would lose power from NV Energy is if, number one, they had some type of huge system outage, or if there was some type of problem on the south and north end at the same time. I leave it to Gene if I can ask questions.
What's the design capacity of our equipment to receiving power? How many megawatts could we handle?
So the design capacity of our equipment
Yeah.
is, so the transformers are rated at 83 megawatts, but they only recommend that you do 50 megawatts. Lmud's current highest load over the last 20 years is 30 megawatts. So when we designed it, we did not design it for future developers,
50% more.
for future developers to send thousands of megawatts onto. We only designed it for our customers, so we consume about 30 megawatts at our peak, and this is designed for 50.
Would Nevada Energy supply anything we want? I mean,
So that would be a contractual question on operations, but I believe the contract that we entered into specified 30.
Contract capacity is 30.
Contract capacity is 30. Thank you for the questions, Mark. So that is all I have on the skedaddle construction.
Any questions? You can continue then with your.
So, thank you. Outage report. I only have one outage to report on, and I don't know if it's gonna come up, but it happened on Tuesday, September 9th. It affected Eagle Lake customers, north of Maribel Road, and as you can see, it's a blown breaker that occurred while working. So we are actively, we have quite a few jobs working on the Eagle Lake line. From budget from July 1st to the end of the year, we're looking at close to 50 new pole replacements on the Eagle Lake line north of Maribel Road in the tree area. We're trying to do some maintenance in there. Our crews are working there every day. They do hot work every day, meaning that it's 14,000 volts. They are moving the phases, spreading them out, setting new poles. When we do that, we have safety precautions. One of those safety precautions is that we set our protective devices to very, very, very sensitive settings. So what happened is the crews moved a conductor, they put it in a piece of equipment or a tool, it's a piece of equipment, secured it. They went and they were working on something else, and that piece of equipment broke while they were working on it, and it's just happenstance. It broke right then. Our equipment picked it up. It shut power off in probably 1/10 of a second, maybe quicker than that, maybe 1/15 of a second. It's so sensitive. And we were able to restore power within 19 minutes. Nobody was hurt. We had plenty of safety protocols in place, but it was a strange coincidence that the tool broke at the same time that they had, about 10 minutes after they had put the conductor in it. So needless to say, those pieces of equipment have been inspected, and a few of them have been discarded, and maybe we need some new ones, some of those specialized pieces of equipment. But anyway, 19 minutes on the Eagle Lake line. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
I have a question.
Okay.
So when the lightning struck, I believe that was in August, we still haven't seen the report of that outage. When will we see that?
So I reported on that at last board meeting because it.
I'm looking, it says zero, it says nothing, no outages on that.
Yes, so our board meeting is on the 4th Tuesday of the month, but the outage report has to go in a week before. But at last August's board meeting, that outage you're talking about happened between the time we had to put the paperwork in for the board packet and the board meeting, but I went ahead and reported on it at the August board
Yes.
meeting, even though it wasn't in the.
I remember you verbally saying, yeah, I guess I was just looking for something on paper, I guess.
That is why it's not on there.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I'll just take this opportunity to mention that the project that they're working on here is the Eagle Lake Line hardening project, one of the capital improvement plans, the projects that the board approved as part of the 4-year capital improvement plan in this budget process. So this is one of those things that we're spending capital funds on to invest in infrastructure, line hardening like this.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go on to item 10. 14-4-1 report. I guess that's you, Nick.
That's me. Thomas is going to get me up on the screen here in a minute. Sorry. Okay, so this is the section 14401 report for the 3-year rate plan. I just mentioned that the intention of all of this is really to get public input, so I appreciate the public being here to help give input, discuss. There will be more opportunities to provide input for this in the future of the public hearing. Balancing with affordability with reliability is difficult. It's what we have to do every day, determining what projects are operationally necessary and figuring out where the line is. Every board draws a line in a different place in terms of reliability and affordability. So this 3-year rate plan will help us do that. So I want to start off by just mentioning here, Teresa created this graphic for the rural light for October, but this is sort of a breakdown of the anatomy of a rate hearing. So we are at step 1. So this is the initiation of the rate review. My report to the board initiates that rate review and asks you to set a public hearing to further discuss the potential of adjusting rates. But really this is a 5-step process that goes through the board receiving the report, setting a public hearing, conducting that public hearing, and then deliberating afterwards based on the information that you received, including public feedback, and then ultimately implementing that rate plan if you so choose. So I just thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of share that process here. So the 14401 report, we call it that. We call it that specifically because it's driven by Public Utilities Code Section 14401. And the Public Utilities Code Section 14401 says that before any rates are changed, that I shall file with you, the board, a recommendation in writing on those rate changes, and then within 40 days, you can hold a public hearing on the report and the recommendation, and we'll follow all of the specified government codes for setting that public hearing and noticing it. So today, what we're really doing, or what I'm asking you to do, is to receive the report from me. If there are any clarifying questions that you or the public have on the report, I'm happy to take those and answer them. However, the discussion on the rate setting itself and the comments on the rates themselves should be done at the public hearing. So what I'm asking today is, are there any clarifying questions that you have on the 14401? I would like for you to receive the report and set the public hearing. That's my recommendation.
So at the public hearing, you would go over this in detail?
Yeah, at the public hearing, I'll go over it in detail, and if you'd like, I can kind of give some highlights, if you'd like.
Yeah.
And then at the public hearing, I'll go over it in detail along with all the supporting documentation. But so this is really, this 3-year rate plan is a forward-looking 3-year rate plan. It's in my experience, the first of a kind for the utility. We usually are doing either rate adjustments via the PDCA, which are backwards looking, or maybe we're a little more reactive to costs that come our way. And so with this 3-year rate plan, what I'm really trying to do is look at costs moving forward, determining what those future costs are going to be, especially considering that we have a fundamental change in transmission coming up, and we know that there are a lot of cost changes that are going to happen at that time. So looking at those, determining what we staff believe the rate needs to be to support those costs, and then giving the board and the public an opportunity to actually deliberate on it and provide feedback. So this opportunity to look forward will net us lower rates in the end, because if we do the same thing that we did, say, back in 2023 and try and collect on previous shortfalls as well as make up for increases in costs, then we're essentially going to be increasing rates further than what they need to. So the recommendation from me, in short, is that in 2026, I recommend that the board break out the public benefits charge, the 2.85%. So that is a state mandated charge that we collect on all energy sales, 2.85% on all energy sales. And then I'm recommending that we break that out, and that was also broken out in this year's budget. So the budget that the board approved included revenues from this 2.5%. Moving forward, January 2027 is what I'm calling the transmission charge breakout. That is when we are slated to be on Skedaddle and NV Energy. At that time, we'll take on some additional costs related to the repayment of the capital cost to build the Schaefer switching station, the operations and maintenance associated with the switching station that we're contractually obligated to pay, the continuation of some of the wheeling access charge, the transmission that we pay to PG&E for WAPA's base resource that we would continue to receive, as well as some additional transmission charges through Pacificorp for the UAMPS energy that we have to wheel through Pacificorp service territory in order to get it to NV Energy, right? All of these costs culminate in an additional, essentially, 2 cents worth of cost to us. One of those pennies is already designated to the Skedaddle fund, so I'm recommending that the board redesignate that penny to transmission. And then asking that we really restructure in such a way that we can provide more transparency in what our total transmission charges are, which is essentially 5.5 cents, and then reducing what we'll call then the power and delivery charge down by 4.5 cents to offset the difference. So it's a net 1 cent increase, but we're sort of restructuring how it looks so that we can provide a little more transparency on what we have to pay just to get the energy to our system before we even start delivering it to customers.
And I understand the public benefits charge will actually reduce that.
Yeah, so the public benefits charge is based off of energy sales alone. So when we reduce the power and delivery charge, the 2.85% will be collected on that lower rate. And then, and one thing to note there, I provided this recommendation based off of our projections for cost for the Schaefer switching station. As Mr. Balding pointed out, we do have an obligation, a contractual obligation to pay for the entirety of that substation over the next 20 years, including NV Energy's rate of return. That is a FERC-approved contract or tariff. That got, it's a NITSA, the Network Integrated Transmission Service Agreement, that FERC approved since they're a regulated entity. In order for them to set a rate such as that, it has to be approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And those costs could go up, right? And so we are projecting what those costs are going to be based off of the percentage increases that we saw in Skedaddle. However, until the project is completed, we won't have any certainty on what those costs are, and as the contract reads, that those costs will be trued up at the completion of the construction of the switching station.
You say Summit was awarded the Energy project. Did it come in at their estimate?
We have
So,
not shared that.
number one, I don't know, and number two, they're a private company, so I'm not sure they have to share
I'll
it.
tell you what they
Yeah, they're not a public company.
Thank you.
Won't we still leave that 1 cent restricted for debt service?
We could, you could put the penny one place or another. So my forecast does account for debt service, and so whether you want to apply that penny to debt service for Skedaddle, or you want to apply that penny to transmission for Schaefer, at the end of the day, it's kind of.
With the increases in, like 400% on conductor and 200% on, what's our line looking like?
You mean in terms of the construction for the new line? So that hasn't gone out to bid yet for the construction. The poles went out to bid. But what we're doing is looking at, or what we did is we looked at the cost difference between what we anticipated for Skedaddle when we were designing it. We looked at what the cost increase was for the construction of it, and then we're applying that same percentage to the transmission line for planning, just because we know that materials have gone up, labor's gone up, all of that stuff since we originally planned this project. So until it goes out to bid, we won't know for sure. But we are planning for an increase in those costs similar to what we saw in Skedaddle.
Those contingencies are included in the financial reports. In that purple box, it says skedaddle. We have included those price increases, expected increases in the contingency. So that is part of the skedaddle budget that you have seen earlier.
We know that the steel poles bid came in at 1.37 million, and Kelly's contingency for the construction is 4.7 million. That's budgeted for.
Okay, one question, 40 days, how does that fit what we're doing?
What's that?
How does 40 days fit what we're doing?
Oh, it's within 40 days, and so we'll schedule it for the October meeting.
Okay.
So moving through the remainder of the 14401, in January 2028, staff is recommending a commodity charge update, or that would then be called the power and delivery charge, the kilowatt hour charge. Looking at purchase power forecasts in the future for where we're going to be receiving our power at the trading hubs of either Mid-C or Mona is what they call them, looking at the forecasted price of power, knowing that we have continued to see significant cost increases in the materials that we use to build our own facilities. The examples that I give in here are examples of our specific purchases from our purchase orders, but from 2020 to 2025 we saw a 60% increase in the price of poles, a 375% increase in the price of transformers, a 434% increase in the price of conductor. These are all things that we have to buy in order to keep the power on. We can't not buy transformers, we can't not buy conductor, we can't not buy poles, right? We continue to see cost increases, even though we originally believed them to be COVID-related supply chain disruptions. And these are really increases that we're seeing throughout the industry. And then in addition to that, we're seeing increased costs related to vegetation management, both in the per hour cost as well as in the amount of vegetation management that we're having to do through our contractors. And I think the board is aware that since 2021, we have been unable to secure wildfire liability insurance just because of the strict liability regulations in California that make it difficult for utilities to protect themselves from wildfire liability claims. And actually, this year S&P downgraded the outlook for the district's credit rating to a negative outlook, including some other utilities nearby, specifically citing the rising potential of future liabilities and operating infrastructure costs associated with wildfire. So the story that I'm really trying to tell here is that we are seeing increased costs across the board, and we continue to try and mitigate as much as possible. However, some of these things are just required to be done as prudent operating practices, right? And then lastly, we have the introduction of a time of use pilot program. This is really an experimental program that we want to take on as an opt-in to allow customers to try and align their usage a little bit better with the district's cost of power. The cost of power for us fluctuates every hour of every day. And so there are times when we are selling energy at a margin, and there are times when we are selling energy at a loss. So if we are able to realize cost savings and purchase power by shifting customer usage, then we could potentially pass those cost savings directly onto the customer as well. So we'd like to do a little bit of a pilot project where we'll have some customers opt into it, provide some education with them, and track closely on whether or not we're able to actually adjust customers' usage and realize that into actual cost savings, measurable cost savings for the district. And if that's the case, we could roll that out right now.
And tying that into the 14401.
Tying that into the 14401, just as the board would adopt this time of use pilot rate as part of the rate hearing. Okay. So that's a summary of my report. Certainly there's a lot more meat in there. If you have any questions, let me know. But my ask of you today is to receive this report and schedule that rate hearing for October so that we can discuss further.
And then at the rate hearing, we'll get more into the nuts and bolts of all that stuff, correct?
Yeah, so at the rate hearing, I'll show you the projections for costs in terms of purchase power, transmission, all of our operations and maintenance costs. And also we'll look at all of the capital costs that were approved as part of the 4-year capital improvement plan, because all of that filters into this as well, right? The funds that we're collecting are anticipated to be turned around and invested back in our own infrastructure. So it's important that that capital improvement plan is part of this process.
So basically, this is a living document. It can change all the time, because we really don't know what's going on. You're just your best estimates right now at the time.
Yeah, so this is all forecast because I'm looking forward.
So it
right?
could change, if you do approve it, it could change later on too, so.
Yeah, so the rate, if you approved the rate at the rate hearing, the rate
Right.
sets in stone. Of course, the cost can change up or down, and then we bring that back to the board.
Right,
and
and you can
determine
change
if
it and
we
whatever else,
make a
so.
change, yeah.
So it's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, and one of the things that I did was an analysis on, okay, if we realized costs like we thought we were gonna realize them throughout this whole period through January of 2028, and waited to adjust rates at that time, total adjustment to rates would be 0.5 cents to a penny more than if we did it proactively in this way. So looking forward and doing it proactively allows us to end up with a lower rate. And I think Jim's comment to Sam's article about the $20, I think it was Jim's comment, maybe it was Martin's, was that was the total sum of all, the impact of all of the rate increases by the time we get to 2028. So if the board takes my recommendation for all 3 years, by the time we get to 2028, it's a $20 impact on the customer's bill, but that's not realized immediately.
So does this need to be broken into 2 motions or just one? One to approve the report and then one to schedule the hearing, or can
You need 2 motions.
Okay, I move to approve the 14401 report.
I'll second that.
Whether we're voting to approve it or voting to receive it.
No.
Yeah, I would recommend we receive rather than approve.
Right, you're not,
Yeah.
you'll approve it at the hearing, you're receiving it for review.
Yeah, and I don't think, we'll go through the motion and approve it's necessary for once.
Did you change that without me saying it? Thank you.
Okay, motion made, any further discussion? Karen?
So you're receiving the report and you're scheduling the public hearing, right?
No, correct.
Just receiving the report first motion.
Director Nutt?
Aye.
Director Haig?
Aye.
Director Nate?
Aye.
Director Urban?
Aye.
Director Moore? Motion passed.
So now we need a motion.
Now I'll move that we schedule a rate hearing for Tuesday, October 28th, 2025 at 5:30 in the Lmud boardroom located at 65 South Route Street.
Now, is that time right, because our meeting starts at 5:30?
Would it be integrated into the board meeting?
It'll usually be integrated into the board meeting when you set it right at the top,
We usually
so.
do it right after public comment.
I'll second
Second, any further discussion? Karen?
Director Nutt?
Aye.
Director Haig?
Aye.
Director Nate?
Aye.
Director Urban?
Aye.
Director Moore?
that.
Motion passed.
Okay, can I get item 11? You're on again.
So this is an updated contract with Regional Government Services. We recently took on utilizing Regional Government Services for our human resources services. They manage for us, they currently manage for us protected leave management, which is leave related to the Family Medical Leave Act, California Family Rights Act, I believe is what it is. They also are working on a policy manual overhaul for us. They provide us with some general HR advice on best practices, some ad hoc consultation services, and they have some additional scope of services that we can take on. So we originally budgeted the $150,000 for this budget year. It's coming a little bit late because we had a smaller contract with them in the previous fiscal year that was within my signing authority, and we're just getting to the end of that now. So I'm asking the board to approve this as was approved in the current budget.
Motion, somebody?
A motion to.
You authorize it.
I've never done this before.
Just read what's up there.
Alright, authorize the general manager to approve the contract with RGS in the amount not to exceed $150,000 as approved in the 25-26 budget.
Good job, your first motion.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Any discussion? John?
Director Lmud.
Aye.
Director Eggleton.
Aye.
Director Nagel.
Aye.
Director Young.
Aye.
Director Moore.
Okay, item 12 then.
This one's Karen.
So this one and the next one, we're going through a process of just trying to clean up a bunch of the resolutions that we have on the books. This one is for damage claims that are not normal in the course of business. And essentially what we're really asking for, you can see in the red line, is increasing the amount from $5,000 to $10,000 for the general manager to approve. That it's been $5,000 since 1990, and obviously prices have gone up since then. And then the form that's attached is the one we've actually been using since 2016, so.
Jane, any issues with this?
Say that again.
Any issues with this?
No, not at all, it's overdue.
Good.
I'll make a motion to update the procedure for board action upon damage claims presented which do not arise after the course of the district business to $10,000.
Can I make a recommendation, if you just can amend that motion, you can just say adopt resolution 2025-04.
Good enough.
Charity, you seconded, right? Yes.
Karen?
Director Lmud.
Aye.
Director Hagetop.
Aye.
Director Nagel. Director Young. Director Moore. Motion passed. And again, the next one, it's another resolution. This one is regarding updating our procedures for identification and disposition of surplus, non-convenient, and obsolete tangible, real, or personal property. We added the wording from PUC 12771, and then it's we're superseding a couple of old resolutions, and it's adding for real or personal property.
And that's an update based on the code of the utilities.
This one's probably along with you too, correct?
It is, and you know, Karen's doing a good job going through those, so.
What personal property could
I think that relates to like, it's just small stuff, right?
Vehicles, tools, just things that are over in the warehouse, stuff that they don't use anymore, things that, you know, sometimes it's computers.
Probably not personal property as you think of personal property, right?
Right, and it's, some of it's things that are being disposed of as well, there's no value to them.
Yeah, in the absence of this policy, what I'd have to do is bring to the board every time I want to dispose of something that we're no longer using it. So this resolution just gives me authority to do it in alignment with the PUC code.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-05 as our motion.
I'll second that.
Director Lmud.
Aye.
Director Hagetop.
Aye.
Director Nagel.
Aye.
Director Young.
Aye.
Director Moore. Motion passed.
14, Nick.
Okay, so earlier, this agenda item is for the engineering cost estimate phase 2 for the working drawings and construction drawings of the 50 North Gay Street building. So earlier this year, I believe, maybe March, the board approved the phase 1 schematic building design of the 50 North Gay Street building, and that was really intended to get a design that was sufficient enough to give us an engineer's estimate on what the cost of remodel for the facility would be, so that the board could consider whether or not that was something that we wanted to take on. So we did complete that work, and you can see attached to this is the cost estimate for that remodel. Engineer's estimate is at 2.1 million, with about 500,000 of contingencies totaling 2.6. And so the next stage here, moving forward, is phase 2, which is the completion of the working drawings and the construction drawings, so that we can get them to the point where we could actually put the project out to bid. Right, and so I'll just highlight a few things here that are in the design, but just noting that we as staff continue to see the need for a new facility. This building was purchased with CP National, and so it's an older building that really no longer meets our needs for accessibility. The public meeting space, it does not have the technology that we need. It's not large enough for what we need. General office space, we've had to construct some additional offices inside this building, and we've all actually started to have to move employees from this building into other ad hoc spaces just because we're running out of room. So the redesign includes 16 office spaces up from the 11 here, 4 mixed-use spaces and or conference rooms, a dedicated training room, which gives us the ability to set up training for staff and for linemen on using technology, a larger and more accessible public meeting space, a larger lobby for the customers, 24/7 payment kiosk, just a lot of updates that will allow us really to serve the community better and to provide a better working environment for our staff.
And as I understand, part of our employee increase is due to California regulations.
Yeah, certainly, we have regulatory requirements that are going to increase even more with us importing power from NV Energy. We have some additional emissions reporting requirements that we're going to have to take on. And also, WAPA does a lot of reporting for us that we're going to be taking on, so there's certainly a lot of additional things that we're going to have to be taking on soon.
For Jim's benefit, I've been pushing to have a line item on our statements for California regulations.
Good, I hope you succeed. There's a lot more line items you need.
And this is just for the working drawings, not the specifications also?
Yeah, so this is for, I believe there is specifications on there. So phase 2, if you look at that first attachment there, you see phase 2, what they're calling phase 2 working drawings. That's the working drawings.
The working drawings and specifications.
Electrical plan, HVAC plan, site improvements, interior specifications, consultation. There are some improvements that need to be made to the parking lot, not the entire parking lot, but there's ADA accessibility requirements that we have to take into account to make sure that there's a path for people to get from the ADA parking space into the lobby. Same thing for the public meeting space. There's some additional ADA stuff that we need.
Yeah, because the motion just says working drawings.
Let's see here. Yeah, and I think that's just referencing, if you look at the
Looking at the total package.
underlined phase 2, they're calling that whole summary their working drawings. Yeah, so
working drawings included, that's what I make sure.
yeah, so if you're gonna make a motion, I would recommend you say phase 2 working drawings. That includes all of that.
That's in there, whatever.
Yeah. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to execute agreement with NST Engineering for phase 2 working drawings for 50 North Gay Street in the amount not to exceed $135,000.
Under discussion, I'm going to be abstaining from this, because it seems to me, as long as I've been away from NST for over 10 years, and I'm still being told by people I still work there. So I'm going to abstain from both.
You have every right to do that. I evaluated that more than a year ago, and you don't have any requirement to do such a withdrawal, but I respect your opinion,
So
so.
friends of mine tell me I'm working there still.
I'm also gonna abstain because we had looked into the building previously for our church.
So we barely got a quorum.
Other than that, the contract is perfectly in order, and a lot cheaper than hiring architects and so forth out of town, I can guarantee you that.
Local firm, you will not come there doing business.
made a motion.
I made the motion.
Seconded.
You second, yeah, you second, now we just gotta vote now, so, we do abstentions.
Any more discussion?
Dr.
Aye.
Dr. Hagadone.
Aye.
Dr. Nagel.
Abstain.
Dr. Graham.
Aye.
Dr. Morgan. Motion passed.
Regulator, is that first thing or?
Yeah, I'll take it. So we are asking the board to approve the purchase of 5 high voltage regulators, not to exceed $180,000. This is a budgeted item. It was budgeted in our capital budget in July. Actually, we budgeted $335,000 toward this project. We recently had an engineering firm do a CWP, or a construction work plan. It's a 3-year plan for improvements to the district. And one of the first things that they recommended we do was install these 5 regulators at specific locations. And the only reason that the board has already approved it in the budget, capital budget, but the number is over the general manager's signing authority, so we're bringing it to the board to approve the $180,000 after tax. If you look at the quote, after we add tax, it's gonna come out to about $160,000. I have not got an estimate for shipping yet, so we erred on the side of caution and said approve it not to exceed $180,000.
And I'll just add to Court's comment that this is again another example of our execution on the board's capital improvement plan, right? So this is informed by the construction work plan to improve power quality to customers that are downline of these voltage regulators. So another good project.
Just like everything else these days, it has a 36 to 38 week lead time, and I was happy when I found out that it was only 38 weeks.
Yeah, that's speedy,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to approve the purchase of 5 regulators and 5 control boxes in an amount not to exceed $180,000.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Karen?
Dr. Miller.
Aye.
Dr. Hagadone.
Aye.
Dr. Nagel. Dr. Marinelli. Dr. Moore. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thanks for work.
President suggestion, is that Cory again?
Yep.
Cory?
Yes, so this next item is for our 2 72 kV vacuum breakers for Skedaddle. They're out of a company called MEPI, which is actually Mitsubishi Electrical Products. So these products were ordered 2 years ago, and just like everything else, they have a price breakdown, and they have a clause in the contract. This company goes by the BLS index, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but it's a plus or minus 3% from the time you order it. They're gonna make a small price adjustment to the end product. Some, if you remember, the transformers had a precious metal price inflator adjuster attached to it. So the bottom line on this is that they are wanting to add $14,050. The original cost was $134,000 each, call it $135,000. They're wanting to add $14,050 to each breaker, along with a $6,855 tariff. And they have broke down the mathematical formulas, they have broke down the tariffs. I guess the short version of it is we are asking you to approve the $41,810.98 adjustments to the original order that was placed 2 years ago. I'll take questions on it. These are, one of the reasons that we're getting these now is this company, a lot of these companies, unlike the transformers, aren't all due and payable after they ship, after you receive them. So we have no money expended toward these yet. they are getting ready to deliver them in the next month, and they want us to, the board to approve this change, and then what we will do internally is we will actually go change the purchase order, so that when they invoice us, the invoice and the purchase order match up perfectly.
When did we first order them?
Let me see, do I have a copy of that?
Yeah, the purchase order is on the bottom here, right?
August 27th.
These were late. We ordered a lot of the stuff in 2022. These might have been ordered in 2024. So it's a 2024 purchase order. We ordered these last year.
Takes that long.
Oh, this is
fast.
This is fast.
For real?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the transformers were 3 years, and they actually, I don't know if it is in here, on the second page, but if you click, I don't think it'll allow it, but I clicked on it and looked at it all. I looked at their BLS index, BLS.gov index, and crunched all the numbers and their fancy mathematical formula, and it comes out to like a 10% increase for each one, 10.4% increase for each one, based on the BLS index.
It's like Amazon, free shipping.
Brian?
They've got a Pennsylvania address, which.
They do, and that is why the tariffs are only a little over $6,000. They didn't break it down very specific, but 3,000 of that came from China, and 3,000 of that, and I have the exact numbers if you want them, but roughly 3,000 from China, tariffs 3,000 from Japan, and I'm assuming it is for, number one, Mitsubishi is based in Japan. Their main USA plant is in Pennsylvania, but I assume this is for either smaller parts inside the breaker or some type of precious metals that they got from China or Japan. The 6,000 tariffs was, what, 4%?
Yeah, they provided us a list of all of the subcomponents that go into it and their country of origin, and then what tariff is applied. And we went back and reviewed all of the fine print contractual language, and of course, all of this has in it that duties are payable upon delivery, no matter what they are.
So can I just say, we move to authorize the general manager to approve the price adjustment on order 202-40036.
Yeah, and if you can give me the amount of
$41,810.98.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Karen?
Aye.
Director Nagel?
Aye.
Director Randall?
Aye.
Director Nell? Motion passed.
Okay, item 17, so court.
Yeah, but they're getting smaller.
I've never seen.
Barton here, so.
This is a change order, and again, we're bringing it to the board. Everything has to do with skedaddle, we're bringing it to the board in change order. But this is from EP2, which is the company that built the control house. It is already delivered. They are kind of finalizing paperwork. If you go to the next, page, the change order for this one, thank you, right there. So the original, when you scroll up, the original contract amount was $1.156 million. We've already had the board approve a previous change order of $61,326. The only thing you're approving on this one is the latest change order of $3,412. And it was a late change by our engineers right before it shipped. And again, the board approves this $3,412 on a $1.2 million purchase. The reason we need that is we are going to go back, we are going to change the purchase order to reflect this. We have board approval. we will give this to EP2, and that way the invoice and the purchase order will match up when we go to pay that final bill.
Paperwork exceeds $3,400, I'm sure. Motion?
I'll authorize the general manager to approve the change order from Electrical Power Products, Inc. in the amount of $3,412.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Okay.
Director Arnold?
Aye.
Director Michael?
Aye.
Director Nagel? Director Lmud? Director Moore? Motion passes.
Okay.
That's good.
Next meeting scheduled, Tuesday, October 28th, 5:30 as usual. We'll have a 5-minute recess before we go to closed session. Closed session is a conference of legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9B1, Lmud versus William Butler et al., LCSC case number 2023 CV0076451.
Does this get to keep getting called ready for the meeting when we've got the rate?
Yeah, that's okay, because it's scheduled as a public hearing later, so. Well, and Karen will know this.
Any action?
Any action?
No. This is an update.
5-minute recess.